There we go. We're live. All right. All right. Technical difficulties surmounted, and welcome to the Node.js Foundation. I'm waiting to actually hear. Right. Yes, the Node.js Foundation Technical Steering Committee meeting for Wednesday, November 7th, 2018. I guess somebody should be taking minutes, and I'm guessing it's going to be me. If there's a volunteer, speak up, please. Otherwise, I'm about to open the doc. And hey.
I can do it. I just need to get to my computer.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, I'll. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that, Rod. Thank you very much. So we start with announcements. We have two new collaborators within the last 24 hours. PS Marshall and Shasami. Since I think of people by their GitHub IDs and not their actual names, I'm really sorry. And OYYD has been nominated to be a collaborator, so that'll hopefully onboarding will happen in the next 7 days or something like that. Does anybody else have announcements? All right, great. So then let's forge on ahead. The first and only substantial issue that I'm aware of for the agenda is Node issue number 23433. This is about the behavior of read file and write file when working with file descriptors. And Sakthi put this on the agenda. I believe we talked about it last week, and we determined that we would kick it back to GitHub, but leave it on the agenda in case consensus wasn't forming. It's my impression that consensus seems to be forming around option 1 in that issue. So I don't know if there's anything for us to do, but I'll leave it to Sakthi to tell us.
Yes, Rod. It looks like number 1 is a popular option right now. Chaka raised a good point in the GitHub discussion about emitting a warning. We are discussing it now, so probably next week we might be able to finish this. Okay, so just in case it gets stalled, we'll leave the TSC agenda label on there, but no need to do anything this week. Is that everybody's feeling on this one? Okay, sure. Anybody else feel differently? Or shall we move on?
I mean, okay, so there's not much to move on to anyway, so I'm just going to ask my question here. For file descriptors, is the position of write read stored with the file descriptor? Because I don't see any option to specify.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Yeah, that's it. That's a system thing. It's stored, like essentially the kernel maintains position with the file descriptor. So I think correct me if I'm wrong, Sakthi, but the change in that pull request that's for option 1 is simply to not reset position. It's just let the file descriptor continue on from where it is. It's not do something with the position. It's just don't reset the position.
Correct, Rod. The pull request makes sure that it doesn't alter the position. That's it.
Any other questions or comments on this one before we move on?
How much ecosystem checking for impact have we done on changing this?
We're still analyzing CATGM results. So most of them were failing even before this change was introduced. So we're still analyzing the results of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned in the issue that I don't think Citrium is going to pick up anything because it's such an obscure usage, and I can't imagine that it would be easy to even find anything with Chalker's tool, because we're talking about just different arguments to read file and write file. That the usage of this kind of thing is going to be in a few obscure NPM packages, but possibly also in production level apps where people have specialized file descriptor usage, like perhaps they're interacting with hardware and they're using file descriptors for it, and like interacting with other kinds of devices. So that's where we might feel the impact. But
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to be able to measure that up front.
Yeah, it feels like kind of like Y2K, like, you know, maybe it'll be a really big impact, but probably not. But, you know, let's get the word out and get people panicking as much as possible to fix this if it is going to affect them, but it probably won't affect them. It's kind of how it, but like that's all gut level. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of actual data we're going to have on this until it's actually released. But I'm not, I'm optimistic. I don't know. I suspect it's not going to affect very many people. The danger is if it affects like an obscure package that you know, an otherwise obscure package that happens to be depended on by, you know, something like, you know, Lodash or Babel or something.
Yeah, it sounds like we'll find out when we get there, though. It's just,
yeah, breaking change, you know. Any other questions or comments on this issue before we move along?
I will say this, that if there was a significant enough level of file descriptor usage out there, we would have heard about this discrepancy earlier. The fact that this discrepancy has slipped by for so long.
I mean, it's certainly come up before, but yeah.
I would hazard a guess that most people who do like FS open to actually get a file descriptor then use FS write instead of FS write file, or read instead of read file.
Yeah, I would have assumed the same.
Yeah, stands to reason. I kind of cut you off there, Rod. Was there anything more you wanted to say on that?
No, that's all.
Okay, anybody else?
If we are to follow Chakar's suggestion, we might not be able to do 23709 in version 12. So we will be issuing a warning in one major release, and in the next major release, we would actually be changing the behavior.
So very cautious and slow moving.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like we could.
Sorry, I haven't seen how he describes doing a warning without just. Is that just a console error whenever somebody does write file with a file descriptor? How do you issue a warning for this that's not just noisy?
Usually our warnings only happen once.
Yeah, but it's used with a file descriptor with non-zero offset. How? I wonder how difficult it is to measure the offset. I guess not too hard. I don't know if we've got access to that in. Do we have access to that in JavaScript? Oh, he says that. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the comment live.
So
we can't do it in JS, but use lseek. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to motion that even though we have a light agenda, I'd prefer that we push these kinds of particulars back to GitHub so that it's documented for everybody else. For one thing, sure. That's okay. Is there is there anything else that somebody feels needs to be said or commented here rather than in the issue tracker? Anybody? All right, cool. Then with that, let's see here. There's the, I'm going to editorialize a little bit. It's my least favorite part of the agenda, which is the tracking issues. There's the tracking issues for updating the TSC on board meetings. Miles isn't here, so we're going to skip that one because he's the one who provides the update because he's the board member. And then there's these strategic initiatives, and we usually go through the list of strategic initiatives, and whoever's here updates us on them. I know one of them is SSL, so that could be Rod if you want to kick that off while I go find the list of strategic initiatives.
Yes, and there is actually stuff to report.
Hooray!
Shieki got bogged down, obviously, in work and other stuff, so just wasn't able to follow up his initial work on 1.1.1. Michael asked Sam Roberts to have a look at it, and Sam did further work on it, and that's sort of created a flurry of activity with Shieki back in there, plus also people from IBM doing AIX support and S390X support, all that sort of stuff. So we're getting really close to having 1.1.1 ready to land, which is really good news. So I don't know if there's an update today, but certainly do. We were in the area now of ironing out the edge cases on the obscure platform. So that's a sign that we're getting really close. We need to do testing on ABI stability because we can't do this without ABI stability. But yes, that's good news.
Okay, so I typed a one sentence note, but feel free to flesh it out, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's also you and Miles are listed for governance. Or is that accurate?
No, I still need to remove myself from that.
Okay, so we'll move on from that one. We'll skip governance. We'll go to New Streams API, which is Jeremiah.
Yes. Nothing significant to report. However, the next parts of this are a little bit more reliance on the Streams working group, and some of those members are currently tied up in doing other things. So unless someone has someone out there wants to help out that has a lot of Streams 3 experience to help build an adapter for that, it's going to be slow for a while.
Okay, so if there's someone with Streams 3 knowledge who wants to help build an adapter for that, please volunteer. Something like that. Okay, cool. I want to check the minutes to make sure I captured what you said accurately, because yes. Next up is V8 currency. That'll be Michael.
Yeah, nothing to report.
Okay. And then async hooks, which would be Ali.
Hello. So async hooks, there is something to report. One of the things that has been blocking progress on async hooks is the performance of promise hooks. And we've been trying to figure out how to deal with that. And we actually held a meeting a couple of weeks back with the VA team and many of the diagnostic working group participating. So we have a plan forward. Matthias is actually going to be resurrecting a PR that originally Matteo wrote that basically gets rid of the need of the destroyer hook in most use cases. And once that is in place, V8 is planning to expose the promise hooks through a JavaScript API. And that should hopefully make most of the async hooks use cases a lot faster.
All right, cool. And that is the end of the strategic initiatives for which we have attendees who can speak to them. So unless somebody has something they wish to interject at this point, okay. That is the end of the published agenda. We usually do, I don't see it on the agenda, maybe we took it off, but we used to at least do Q&A. I don't know if anybody wants to check IRC or the YouTube channel to see if there's any questions for the technical steering committee. I'll just kind of like sit here quietly for 10 seconds and try to look in a few of those places myself, but I will probably miss things because I'm not really good at this kind of multitasking. All right, I'm going to assume there's no questions. Speak up if there are. Any last minute business before we sign off? I don't think Colin or Anatoly has said anything during this meeting, so I don't know if you have anything to say to the world.
I have nothing useful to contribute, so better I stay quiet.
And Colin's in a noisy place, so he doesn't want to unmute his microphone. Okay. All right, great. Well, thanks everybody. I'm going to sign us off of YouTube. Let's see here. Stop live stream.